And let's look at finishing off the runner application icon. Back to Illustrator. This is where we left off, and what we need to finish out is this rounded rectangle in the back can have a nice subtle gradient to it that'll help add some depth. We can add a highlight, and then we can give the entire thing a drop shadow. So what I'm going to do is select everything and move it over here to the outside of the artboard. I'm going to work with copies of things to get started. So I'm going to select the rounded rectangle that I have in the back. I'm going to Alt drag a copy over to my artboard. And then what I'm going to do is open up my gradient palette. It's kind of in the middle, looks like a rectangle on its side with a gray to white gradient inside of it. So first thing, make sure that you're addressing the fill and not the stroke, which I am. That's the yellow. All right. There's actually a yellow to orange gradient in here, but let's make our own. So we're going to do white to black. We can make it a radial. That's fine too. That'll just help add some dimensionality so it looks like it's somewhat bubbled. Okay. We don't need an angle. I do want it slightly squished. And then the way these gradients work is you have these stoppers at the bottom, or these sliders. Wherever you slide them is where that color stops. So you can see if I really slide in this black, that leaves a lot of it and a lot less gray. I can bring in the white, and that really opens up the inside. So I'm going to put these back to the start and finish position. And the diamond on top is the midpoint of the color change. So without changing the intensity or adding more, it's addressing where that color change happens. So I'm going to put that back in the middle, roughly. And then what we actually want to do here is address these colors. So by double-clicking on the stoppers, and I'll start with the white one, double-clicking on the white one, this is going to be the lightest color value that we want in there. So I'm going to go ahead and open the swatches, and let's make the lightest one this yellow. Then I can double click on the black stopper, and if I make this our lightest orange and then go back to the color indicator, what I can actually do is tone that farther to yellow and lighten it out and darken it up a little so that we still have some variance. And that's pretty nice right there. Very, very subtle. Okay, so that's our background. While we're back here, let's put a drop shadow on this. So I selected that rounded rectangle again. I'm going to go to Effect, under Illustrator Effects, under Stylize is Drop Shadow. Now, be very, very, very gentle using drop shadows. They make things look very cheap and clip artish very, very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to up my offset to about 0.3 on the X, about 0.3 on the Y. That blur is good. If I click on my preview, I can see what I'm working with, and I went too far. Let's go 0.1 actually was the answer. I would like my blur to come up a bit. That'll help soften. And then if I click on the color, I actually want to put in a little bit lighter value. I'm going to make this 85 in the black down here. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to take a look at it. Looks very soft, very subtle, very nice. If I click off, you can see it gives it just that slightest bit of dimensionality. And then close to the last thing that we need to do, I'm going to go back to the original rounded rectangle that we used. I'm going to drag a copy of this over onto the artboard, and let's move the finished one with shadow out of the way. Move this one over onto the artboard. I'm going to go back to my gradient palette, and what I'm going to do is change this first drop down to fading sky, because this is actually a gradient that fades to transparency. So I do want this linear, but I need to turn it actually minus 90. Yeah, so that the dark value, the blue values on the top and the open values to the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is change these colors so that they match what I've used in the gradient there. I'm actually going to use straight yellow. And if I change the beginning and end back to that straight yellow, now you can see that what we have, if I change the opacity on that first stop in general to about 60, that'll give us a nice soft gradient. So the last thing to do is just put all this stuff together. And if I grab my profile shoe and my upside down shoe, and then so they stay together in relation to one another, I'm going to group those. I'm going to keep those selected, hold down Shift. I'm going to select our fade, our highlights. Oh, I need to cut that. Okay, so we're not quite done with the fade highlight. We need to remove the stroke or outline, and then we also need to cut this. So I'm going to use the pen tool. The convention on these is that you do sort of an S-curve around. If I go back to my selection tool and drag onto this, and instead of a gradient fill, I'm just changing this up here in the taskbar, I give this just a black stroke just to see what it looks like. I can arrange this where I'm going to want it to cut this highlight. And I want it to go sort of diagonal, and I'm going to pull it down just the littlest bit. Okay, and just like we did with the parts of the shoe now, I'm going to select both of those, go to Pathfinder, Divide. I'm going to right click on top of it, ungroup, and then the bottom part I don't want. Okay, this top part I want to be at the top of the order, stacking order of all my objects. So I'm going to arrange, bring to front. I'm going to click on our background and do object, arrange, send to back. And that'll leave my shoes over here in the middle. So now if I select all three, I'll start by clicking on the group that is both of the shoes. Hold Shift, click on my highlight, hold Shift, click on my background. In the main taskbar, I can address my alignment tools. I want to align to artboard, and I'm going to center, center, and then I have to grab my highlight and my background, and change to align to selection, sorry about that, and align top. Now that's cool, that's actually quite nice, but I do want the shoes all the way on top instead of underneath that outline. So I'm going to select the shoes, object, arrange, bring to front, and there you have it.